Oric Consulting presents the Oracle Podcast with Anton Marshall. Hello and welcome to the Oracle Podcast. I'm Anton Marshall. Today we're on the line to Mr. Devon Currer, who is fast becoming a very famous and popular ring announcer, pundit, commentator on all things boxing. Hello, Devon. How are you doing?
What's up, Anton? You well?
Very, very well, thank you. Devon, I want to start off today by talking about how on earth does one get involved with something as seemingly left of center as ring announcing?
Oh, man. Basically, what it boils down to is about 8 years ago in one of the boxing gyms, they wanted to put on a fight, and the lady who managed the gym at the time said, we need somebody with a groot bek on him to do the job of the ring announcer. And yeah, she came up to me and asked, and I instantly said yes without really thinking about it, but never looked back since. So about 8 years later and hundreds of shows, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger because I don't know, either I'm good at it or I'm the only person who does it. I'm not sure.
Since that first time, are there some things that you feel you've improved on or that you've learned about, how to do it better?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, every single show you feel like you evolve a little bit more and more. I mean, I've still got the DVD at home of my very first show I ever did, and I'm too scared to go and watch it now because I know how I felt that night the first time I was doing it. I was an absolute wreck in a very cheap suit, and it's been a crazy ride. But it's gotten to a point where I don't get nervous anymore for shows and crowds and things like that. I think it's just a natural evolution as you become more comfortable with not only yourself but what you're doing in front of other people, and you believe in yourself a lot more. The confidence shines through, and it becomes easier and easier to do.
I know you've also done a couple of other types of shows. I know you did a spot presenting down at something like Up the Creek as well. How did that translate for you? Is there a different type of environment? Is it a different type of thing that you prepare for?
Yeah, I'd say the environment, say for instance, between rock festivals like you mentioned Up the Creek that I've done and boxing, it is completely different. The crowds are completely different. I think the expectations of what you're meant to say and the way that you conduct yourself are completely different. If it comes down to enjoyment, which do I prefer to do? Obviously, it's boxing announcing. Whereas I thought being on stage at a festival, you've got to be a lot more sort of finger on the pulse of the person who's in front of you at a rock festival. You really got to tap into that in order to make it sound successful. Whereas boxing, they all know what a ring announcer is meant to be. So there's that certain expectation from you. And because I'm more comfortable in doing ring announcing than I am at a rock festival, it's easier for me to do. But I mean, not to mention, I had a lot of fun doing the rock festival stage-wise. And I'll do it again, but definitely boxing ring announcing is my favorite sort of method.
Right. Now, in your opinion, how important is the role that you would play as a ring announcer at a boxing match or at a boxing night to create that atmosphere for that crowd?
Well, it's two-pronged. I do it for the crowd, yes, but my main focus is actually doing it for the fighters themselves. Because, you see, when a guy is about to get into a ring and he's into a potentially life and death situation, because let's face it, that's exactly what boxing and cage fighting is. He needs to get that confidence in order to walk in and go, right, I've heard my name, I've heard my credentials, people know where I'm from, the crowd is now shouting for me. And that's the job of a ring announcer. You've got to be that guy who, and all of the guys that I announce, I look at them while I'm announcing them to gauge what they're feeling. And if they start bouncing up and down a little bit faster and they look at you and they start believing in the words that you say, you're giving that fighter that one last bit of confidence before he goes into that situation where it's either him or the other guy. And you do it for both fighters, and then with that, gets the crowd involved. So, when the crowd hear the fighter's credentials, especially if you're announcing Cape Town and the fighter's from Cape Town, and you say, and fighting out down, the crowd goes nuts. Also, it's very important at the end of the fight because I've got to relay who won the fight to the crowd and to television or whomever may be there. So there's a particular way in which I announce the results. And I also like to mess with the crowd a bit when I announce the result. Like, you know, making them wait like 3 or 4 seconds before I announce the winner and all that sort of thing. It's a little bit of fun that I have. Yeah, you know, it's two-pronged. It's for the crowd but mainly for me, it's more for the fighter. You know, I want to give him that last bit of push before he goes into that situation for our entertainment.
Okay, so getting to most recently, you were recently involved in a boxing evening called the Financial Services Fight. Tell us a little bit about how that went and what were some of the highlights for you.
Well, the Financial Services Fight Night is a very special night. It's one I look forward to every year because basically how it works, it's bankers who represent different firms around Cape Town, and they train at my boxing gym, which is the Armory Boxing Club in Woodstock. They train up from the end of November, I believe they started, and they trained up until the end of February for their fight, which was in March. So they got a couple of months of good training, and a lot of them had never boxed before, and they do it for charity. So we had this massive crowd that came to the Cape Quarter. Was around about the beginning of this month. I can't remember the date exactly. You know, the different firms, so you had Sanlam, Investec, State Street, all of those kind of guys with their office workers in there supporting their fighter against another firm's fighter. So it's got that special sort of charm to it because it's bankers beating up on each other for charity. CNBC was there. They ran a little side on it on the DSTV channel, which was quite fun. And yeah, a couple of $100,000 got raised for charity. So it's something that's quite close to my heart because I like being able to do it, knowing that, you know, these guys are doing it for money for other people less fortunate. So it's a raucous event, absolute raucous event. I had a lot of fun about that, and it was a Thursday night that I'll never forget because the fights were great. You know, it was fought in good spirits. You know, there was a bit of needle between different firms, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know, everyone knew what they were there for. It was for charity, it was for kids, and yeah, it worked out really well.
What is your view on the sort of rise recent years of white collar boxing? There may be critics out there who don't feel it's really a good pastime to engage yourself in. What would you say to those people?
You know, white collar boxing, especially in a place like Cape Town where there's pro events are few and far between, it's the only thing that's keeping boxing alive in Cape Town. Because, you know, white collar, you appeal to a completely different set of people because generally white collar, exactly what it is, it's white collar workers, you know, bankers, lawyers, doctors, those kind of guys who bring with them their friends who are an entirely different sort of crowd to what you'd normally expect of people at a fight night or a fighting situation. So it brings a new crowd of people to watch safe fighting. It's not always, okay, blood gets spilled every now and then a guy gets knocked out, just like anything else. But, you know, it's not as though these guys are pounding on each other because they're doing it for the money and all of that sort of thing. There's no big attitudes involved. So white collar boxing most certainly has its place in sports in general, not just in Cape Town, but mainly in Cape Town because, you know, there's just not much pro stuff going on. So what do the people do? They come and watch white collar and they support it really, really well. In Joburg, they also have white collar. I don't think it's as big as what Cape Town's white collar scene is, but they've got the professional stuff up there. So it balances out at the end of the day. Cape Town needs white collar more for the boxing to continue and stay in the public domain than what Joburg does.
Fantastic. Okay, you're a pundit. You comment for television. You analyze for television. You do lots of events yourself, and you're involved with them. No one would forgive me if I didn't ask you, what's your take on the upcoming Pacman and Mayweather fight?
I hate it when people put me on the spot, especially when this is going to get recorded and get thrown in my face at any time. But no, my honest opinion is that you know, an old boss of mine told me, bet on a horse until it loses. And Mayweather's yet to lose. I think that he is technically the more sound fighter. I think that he has got the least amount of damage on him comparing the two fighters from a long career, both of them going over 20 years now. So Pacquiao, he makes a lot of mistakes. He's a very attacking fighter, got great fast hands, but I don't think he knocks guys out at welterweight anymore. I think you have to go back to 2009 for his last knockout. Mayweather also hasn't knocked anyone out recently in the welterweight division in a couple of years, but he's just a much more sound fighter, and I think that Mayweather on the night will be a bit bigger, and I think he knows how to deal with a left-hander who makes sloppy mistakes, and that's, Pacquiao, he comes in with the fast hands, but oftentimes he gets caught leaning in too far and lunging, and his legs in a very split position. And, a guy like Mayweather, he's the best counterpuncher in boxing for easily the last 10, 15 years. There's nobody who's as good as counterpunching and waiting on mistakes than what Mayweather is. And I just get the feeling that, Pacquiao is going to present those mistakes from about round 4 onwards. Mayweather typically takes about 2 or 3 rounds to feel a guy out, and then it starts to happen. He starts to connect with the right hand. And I think Mayweather's going to win a points decision, if not a late stoppage.
There we go. There you have it from the horse's mouth. Devon Currer, boxing pundit, ring announcer extraordinaire out of Cape Town. Thank you very much for your analysis. Your money's on Mayweather. We'll come back to you after the fight and we'll analyze the fight and see what happens.
Yeah, that's cruel of you, but okay, thank you very much. It's been wonderful to have me. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time, Devon. Thanks.
You have been listening to the Oracle Podcast, brought to you by Ore Consulting, www.oreconsulting.co.za.